media friends love to be controversial. In fact, they love to use that word, controversy. The word controversy sells newspapers. The word controversy creates clickbait on social media. And when a news story is regarded as controversial, it may be good or it may be bad. What are the controversial stories out there in the moment? It may be political, as we continue to hear about so-called Partygate. It may be sport. It might be the presence of Saudi Arabia still in the Premier League here in the northeast of England, and Formula One. It may be the World Cup in Qatar. It may even be the government's terrible U-turn on the ban on conversion therapy. Interestingly though, people don't like it much when vicars use pulpits for controversial topics. These are surely things we would rather not talk about, David. In fact, we spoke in our Lent course just this week about how do we speak into silence? How do we talk about those things which are often hidden away? And that can be controversial. I would suggest to you this morning that the pulpit is exactly the place for controversy. And I think as we journey through our gospel reading, you'll find out why. Because the gospel reading was read to you, the gospel reading set for this morning, that beautiful account from Bethany, is full of controversy. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Things that shouldn't be happening. Well, it starts off with dinner. But it's not just any old dinner. This is dinner served in honour of a man who's been raised from the dead. Yes, raised from the dead, Lazarus himself. That's the first controversy. Then what do we find? We find Mary kneeling at Jesus' feet. This is completely improper and inappropriate. This is no place for a woman in the day. This is controversy number 2. And the narrative moves quickly on to controversy number 3. There is a pound of costly pure nard. It actually would have been imported even then from the sub-Indian continent, and it would have cost a year's wages. And there was enough to anoint an entire body, and yet Mary pours it just over Jesus' feet. And if that wasn't racy enough for you, Mary wipes Jesus' feet with her hair. Not only is this not proper or right for a woman to do this in public, to let down her hair and use it in such a way belongs behind closed doors, shall we say. But as we're before the watershed, I won't go any further, because I don't want my sermon banned from YouTube. But it is controversy number 4. And then, number 5, Judas Iscariot, who wants to sell the perfume so he can stick his share of the cash in his money bag. Sounds like politics again, doesn't it? What we've heard is actually a beautiful account of Mary and her love and her gratitude for what Jesus has done for her, bringing Lazarus from the dead. She owes him everything, and she wants to give him the very best she has, and she brings it to Jesus' feet. Jesus sees it as anointing before his death, something that Mary would not have known at the time. But there is something else in the text, which I would suggest to you points to the biggest controversy of them all. And it's my favourite verse from this account. And it's just these words: the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. Here we have Jesus, born of Mary in a stable, turned refugee as a child, growing up on the outskirts of society, devoting his adult life to teaching and preaching, prepared to go to his death. The biggest controversy, of course, about Jesus is that Jesus is the Son of God. Jesus is God himself, incarnate, walking on this earth in order to save you and to save me. So much love for his creation. so much love for you and me to die a terrible, cruel death and to rise again. We will walk to the cross in these next few days and see that sacrificial love once again. That love is so great that its fragrance fills the room. That's the controversy. Its fragrance fills our hearts. Its fragrance fills the world. The greatest controversy of them all. The word controversy comes from two Latin words. The word contra, which means against, and the word verses, which means to turn. Controversy simply means to turn against. In our gospel reading, we find the real controversy is when Jesus turns against the world and shows nothing but love. When Jesus turns against the financial concerns of Judas, for he knows so much more. When in his death and resurrection we will see Jesus turn against the hurt and the hatred and the violence and the pain of this world, showing nothing but real love, a love whose fragrance fills the room. Now that is controversy. And so as we come towards those final days, here on Passion Sunday, I urge you, no actually I beg you, be controversial. Turn against the ways of this world. After all, that was the point of Lent and the Lenten journey. Move towards the way of love, the way of peace, the way of Christ, for that is real controversy. We are coming to Holy Week so very soon, and the way of Christ and the walk of Holy Week is incredibly controversial. On Palm Sunday we are called to be gentle, to be humble, in a world that seeks glory and honour, a world that wants fame and fortune. Gentleness and humility, that is controversy. On Maundy Thursday we'll be called to look at our oneness and equality with all, to serve others first as we see Jesus wash the feet of his disciples in a world that worships power and dominion. Equality and service, that's controversy. On Maundy Thursday we will also be called to prayer and vulnerability as we see Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane in a world that wants control and independence. Prayer and vulnerability, that's controversial. Whatever the controversies of the world, we are called to turn against them, to go with Christ. Whether it's the evil deeds that we've seen in Eastern Europe, the evil of Mr. Putin in his war against Ukraine, whether it's the power of Saudi Arabia over the world of sport, 81 people dead in a day, and yet they continue to hold power over the Premier League and Formula One. Their human rights record is lower than the gutter. A government that sets rules when it can't even follow them itself. None of that is actually controversial. That is simply the way of a broken world. We are called to be controversial. We're called to turn against it. That word controversy, contra and versus, to turn against. So this Lent, this Holy Week, this Easter, Jesus Christ himself calls you to be controversial, to turn against the hurt and the heartache, the mistrust and the misery, the gossip and the greed, the power and the politics, the pain and the prejudice. Instead, clothe yourself with the controversy of gentleness and humility, equality and service, and prayer and vulnerability. For this is the fragrance of love that Jesus wants to fill the room, to fill our hearts, to fill our world. And so I ask, no, I beg, be controversial. Be controversial in the name of God who created you, saved you, and will always love you.